guys, this is Kamigano, and today I'm doing the top 10 Kickstarters of the month. And before I get started, I do have a Kickstarter of my own, Slice of Life. It's about an anime character that comes to life and falls in love with a high school cheerleader. It's 200 plus pages of content. It's the whole first season of that webtoon, so hopefully you guys could go check that one out. I also do have a couple of friends who have Kickstarters, so we're going to name those first and then jump into the top 10. First is Wurst Mayhem issue 1. This is a really fun concept because you get to see two unlikely people get cursed in a medieval setting, and of course they have to try to figure out how do we not have this curse with each other and bounded together. And actually two friends are writing it and creating it as well, and collaboration is always a cool thing to see with Kickstarter and the Kickstarter community coming together because they found each other through Kickstarter. So I think that's cool. Next up is Dragon Grit. I mentioned this because actually Caleb is sponsoring Comic Book Weekly for 2 episodes. Go check out our comic book podcast, Comic Book Weekly, if you don't check it out. Thought I'd announce it here as well. It's a dragon Kickstarter comic book, and if you kind of like westerns, I feel like it has that western vibe as well, with dragons. How can you say no? Moving on to Bequest limited edition hardcover. So this is actually issue ones of different Black heroes and different indie creators coming together to make one graphic novel, which I think is a cool way to do a collection. Again, usually you get to see like one series or a series within the same universe, so to see again, Kickstarter collabing together and getting these Kickstarter creators together in a fun project like this is always inspiring. Now moving on to Snowpaw. This is issue 3. This is my favorite part of the Nightwolf saga. So Nightwolf is your Werewolf Kickstarter book. I think one of the best flagship Werewolf Kickstarter books. And this is the female side of it, which is always fun. And you don't get to see enough of female werewolves in general, which is why I like this series even more, so I enjoy that one. This is the Last Friend Kickstarter, and then we're going to go in the top 10. Mary Shelley's School for Monsters. So this is a twist on Mary Shelley, who created Frankenstein. How about if she was a teen, and how about if she had a friend that was a monster? So it's a YA take on a very twist of the Mary Shelley public domain. Go check this one out. If you like the book Haunting that we published on Lifeline Comics, it's actually the same artist who did issues 1 through 4 for that one. Jumping into the top 10. Number 10 for me is Air Rider. This is a fun concept because you get to see, this is a superhero book where the main character is trying to redeem his father's sins. His father is a bad guy, and he's like, you know what, maybe I can be better. So it's a concept we could all get behind, and I think an easy thing to relate to. Moving on to number 9, which is Gunpunch. This just had a really fun style to it. I feel like it was very stylized art, and it's just this guy trying to figure out what it means to be a hero, and sometimes that's not always a fun thing to do. It's not always going to go your way. So I'm guessing a more comedic side of heroing as well. Moving on to number 8, which is Extremity. This is by Skybound. If you've been enjoying Transformers, you like Do a Powerbomb and all the rest that Daniel Warren Johnson has worked on, this is one of his first stories, and it's finally being collected. I believe it was a webcomic. I love Daniel Warren Johnson. I think he could do no wrong, so why not also get a collection of maybe a series you haven't touched before. Moving on to number 7, which is Gemini Force. This is a not safe for work rock and roll book. Just a fun vibe. You know, there's a lot of not safe for work books on Kickstarter, and it's how do you make yourself different these days? And I think if you add music, that's always a fun twist you can have. I love comics with music because it's a stagnant medium, and how do you do something with sound within a stagnant medium that you can't hear. So I'm always interested in stories like that. Moving on to number 6, which is The Really Complete Paradise 2. This is a Terry Moore book. This is his second time on Kickstarter. His first time, he knocked it out of the park, and his second time, he's doing that again. And this is Strangers in Paradise story before the Adventures of Strangers in Paradise, which is actually really cool, because if you read Strangers in Paradise, those first issues, you see, oh wow, these characters have a lot of history, which the series does end up exploring, but also how much can you fit when you're also trying to tell what is gonna happen to these characters. So to have these strips to kind of go back and figure out who Francine and Kachu are, I think is a fun way to explore that world. And it's Terry Moore. You can't say no to that. Moving on to number 5, which is Cult of the Lamb. This is a big Kickstarter book right now if you look at the numbers, because it's also a big indie video game. So Oni Press is joining the ranks of Kickstarter and publishing this cult favorite video game into a comic book, which I always think is great for the platform at Kickstarter because it brings new type of people, obviously just from the direct market with Oni Press, but then also this video game that a lot of people like. Moving on to number 4, which is One Sun issue 1. This is a Hawaiian hero, and honestly, you don't get to see that enough. I don't think I can name one Hawaiian hero, so I was just like, wow, that's really cool. That's cool representation, so it hooked me right from there. And also the costume looked really cool, the design looked cool, and I like seeing superhero books on Kickstarter. I actually don't think we get to see enough of them. Moving on to number 3 is Galaxy Gal. This has a very Jetsons Bruce Timm vibe, and it's this sci-fi story about different timelines, and it just looks fun. And again, the style really got me. It kind of had this retro look to it. Moving on to number 2 is BALIKBAYAN, and this is a really cool concept. It's a Filipino horror story. And, you know, I love horror because I feel like it's a genre, especially today, where you're seeing the most original storytelling. I like the idea of exploring a story or a folklore that I don't know much about and explore a culture that I don't know much about. So I just think this is a really cool twist on the monster story and maybe seeing something very different from the monster story, but also something familiar of the tension that you might see in another monster story. So I just thought this was a really, really cool concept. Moving on to number 1, Our Sins Are Scarlet. This is a not safe for work queer book. Skylar Patridge is on it. You might have seen Skylar on DC books like Wonder Woman, and she just has knockout artwork. I love her art style, and to see that not just for covers but interiors on a Kickstarter, sign me up. And it's also a spy story. It just kind of has everything I like in a book, and this was one I was really super excited to back, which is why it is my number 1 pick. Let me know in the comments below what are books that you backed this month on Kickstarter. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.